Okay, I'll ask the questions.
Mm-hmm. Who's asking the questions, me or you?
Me.
Are you sure? I just asked you a question and you failed this one.
Oh, fuck. What was the definition of Jonas Bidgerson?
How many words?
As many as you want, really.
As many as I want.
We'll try and keep
I mean, it would take thousands of words to describe Jonas.
What was the definition of Jonas Bidgerson?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
What was the definition of Jonas Bidgerson?
Well, he was just a man. A man with a plan. Plan to take the land with any means possible. He was willing to do deeds unthinkable, one might think. But I didn't think. Actually, no, thinking about it. Fuck's sake.
What was the definition of Jonas Bidgerson?
He could have been a star. He was my brother. He could have been a star because we could have been famous together. But our 3 brothers took that from us.
3 brothers?
3 brothers. Do you know them?
I don't know them.
Are you familiar with the Jonas brothers?
To me, a rival. Many times he'd come into my house, uninvited often, and he would say things to me like, "Hey Jevon, I'm going to eat these 3,000 magnets." Or, "Hey Jevon, do you think I could eat 3,000 magnets?" Or, "Hey Jevon, watch me catch these 3,000 magnets." And he'd always have these 3,000 magnets, always with him, always. Very, very distracting. Every time all the electronics in my house would just turn off completely. But I suppose, who was he to me? A walking bag of 3,000 magnets.
Well, when I was growing up, he was my neighbour. I mean, by then he was already quite old. Maybe in his like mid-70s. Yeah, he was again very eccentric because he was the town crier. He would often in the mornings he'd wake us up with his gong. In the mornings, he'd hit it 6 or 7 times and he'd scream.
Who was Jonas to you?
Well, we met at church, and I've never seen him before, but he must have seen me from some of the other times I've been there because he knew my mother's name.
Sorry.
Me and Jonas met for the first time at church.
Sorry, I'm just thinking about the future.
Me and Jonas met for the first time at church. I hadn't seen him before, I hadn't seen him come in, but obviously he knew me.
I'm really sorry.
I didn't know him, but he apparently knew me, or at least he knew of my mother. I didn't know him. I hadn't seen him come in before, but he must have known me, or at least my mother, because the first thing he said to me...
I might just have to leave the room.
I met Jonas in church. I met Jonas in church. I hadn't seen him come in before, but he must have seen me around because he sat next to me. And I remember, we didn't say a few words, but he reached his hand across from me and shook my mother's hand.
I'm gonna leave the room, so I'm ruining it. Did you always see eye to eye?
I saw more of tooth to tooth, one might say. I mean, I was also his dentist in the later years. No, not really. I would say more tooth to tooth. Fuck's sake. I'd say more tooth to tooth, really, because being his dentist and everything like that. But yeah, being his dentist was, it was an interesting thing. He got a lot of insight. Yeah, being his dentist is, it's an interesting. You got a lot of insight, and you just got to see what the mouth tells a lot of tales. Actually, it tells you how the person is in terms of like who they are and what they've been eating and sucking and things like that, and you can see all the grime and the muck. And you can see all the grime and the muck that they've been doing, and sometimes hair. There's a lot of hair. He had a lot of hair in his mouth. bit inhumanly amount of hair.
Stupidest one.
He'd often say that he was only hanging out with me because he thought my mum was really fit, which is not something you want to hear every day, to be honest. I mean, she's a lovely woman, but like, I don't think of her in that way.
I'm actually in pain. Okay.
I haven't even talked about the fact that he's a chef.
That's fucking nasty way to go, wasn't it?
Cool, it really was. What can I say though, when you carry around 3,000 magnets, really, really nasty. But I mean, when you're carrying around 3,000 magnets with you, you're basically just asking for a disaster. I guess we call it a fatal attraction.
And he fainted because of the cold, and his lifeline wasn't secure. And then he fainted because he was so cold, and
Picture it coming.
I heard he was up on the mountain, and like whilst he was up there, his fingers got really cold, and he got frostbite, like really, really, really bad frostbite. And he was climbing up with his ice picks, which would have been fine, but his lifeline wasn't secure, and he plummeted. He plummeted like maybe 400 or 500 meters.
They say he died of old age.
Sorry.
They say he died of old age. But honestly, he was only 30.
Nasty way to go, wasn't it?
How did he go?
Oh, he died in a car accident.
Oh yes, of course. Late night,
Yeah.
quite rainy that day.
I mean,
It was upside down and everything. Burning wreck. Screaming children in the back of seat that he's stolen from a school. That's beside the point. Because screaming kids, he stole from the school actually that day. And I was potentially coincidentally just there on that same day because I don't know. I was just out seeing the land. My mother, of course, owns the land. I was just out on the land, of course, because
on the land.
I was just minding my business out on the land because, of course, my mother owns all the land, and well, it was a little clip, and that was all. That's all that's needed. All needs to be done to take out a villainous man. Disgusting, grave-robbing, motherfucking man.
Nasty way to go, wasn't it?
Ligma.
Oh, for God's sake. Nasty way to go, wasn't it?
Ligma.
What's ligma? Okay.
Do you want me to say Ligma balls?
Okay, that one we just did was good.
Ligma balls.
I'm gonna die. What's a notable memory of Jonas? What's a notable memory of Jonas?
Well, there was this one time when they, it was like a brand new shop had opened up in the town centre, and of course, they obviously get the town crier to announce it. Jonas was there with his bell. He was ringing it, and he wore this very silly outfit this one day, which was like a kind of sumo wrestler blow up outfit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not sure why he was wearing it, honestly. Maybe he felt particularly insecure that day, and he just wanted to kind of be the big man. We all kind of know he is, but obviously, maybe in his head he didn't believe it. So I mean, that was notable. I remember I went up to him and I said, Jonas, why are you dressed like a sumo wrestler? And he said, oh, because I love sumo wrestling. Just like that. And I thought that's a weird voice. Honestly.
Fortunately, we went to separate colleges, and beyond that, obviously, I don't believe he went to college. He was kicked out quite quickly, but I do remember seeing him outside one of the college that I went to, and there was some screaming involved, and a lot of hair pulling. He really shouldn't have done that to that lady. He was pulling and pulling and pulling. Her scalp started to come off. It was disgusting. They should have locked him up so many years ago. Why did I have to become a prison dentist?
One day I was just at the shops buying, my regular bag of ready salted crisps. One time I was at the swimming pool and he walks in and he shouts in his ridiculous voice that he had. It sounded a bit like, "Hey!" There's one time I was in a large field and he walks in and in that, that deep booming voice of his, he goes, "Hey!" And I go, obviously it took a lot of patience. Jonas was a difficult man to get on with at the best of times. And I said, "Well, what is it, Jonas?"
If you could say something to him now, what would you say?
Eat shit. Eat. I think actually he did eat shit. Seeing some of his teeth and the lack of a lot of them, he definitely ate copious amounts of shit. Yeah. I'm happy. I'm happy he's gone.
What lessons do you think we could learn from him?
Everyone has access to his 5-step course on how to make a 5-step dish, which is part of the 5-step book series that he wrote 5 years ago.
I'm brushing teeth daily.
How to be caring but not too caring. Decent. "88 times table."
I think a lot of the way Jonas lived his life, if no other person ever lives their life in a similar way at all, I think the world would be a much better place for it.
Do you think that he had a good life?
He was always smiling, his crooked smile, I'd say. That's how I defined him, as a crooked man with his crooked smile. And you could just see all the gaps in his teeth and the rotting, decaying hair inside as well.
Do I think he had a good life? I think yes, although undoubtedly at the expense of many others' lives.
Do you think that he had a good life?
Jonas. Yeah, I'd say he had a good life, I think. Yeah, it was a long life. Yeah, it was, obviously I only knew him for the last 20 years. 15 really, because I wasn't really thinking for the first 5 years of my life. But no, I think that before I knew him, those 70 years, I think he was like a war veteran, maybe. He's very. No one really knew about him, but I once went into his house and I saw a kind of a skull nailed to the wall. And I asked him about it, and he just said it was he said it was his mum. But I didn't believe him because it didn't look like a woman's skull, It looks a bit bigger, more like a kind of the skull of a pterodactyl or something like that.
Do you think that he'd think that you thought that he'd had a good life?
I think with Jonas, the subject of thinking is not hugely common to him, but when he does think about whether I'm thinking of his thoughts on his own life, I think what he would think is that... Sorry.
Do you think that he'd think that you thought that he had a good life?
Oh God, this is so much... No, I think he knew I hated him. I don't know why he decided that he would allow me be his prison dentist, because I was pulling his teeth out as much as I could whenever I could. But legally, you can't actually do that. They have to consent to that. But Sometimes I might have just dropped my hammer in there a bit, just chiseled it away because it was disgusting. It was awful. How much hair? There was so much hair. I thought I might have lost some hair and put it in there, just grumbled it up. I felt like he probably spat out hairballs. How much hair? It's inhuman how much hair he had. So much hair. And it was all different colours. It was grey, silver.
What do you miss most about Jonas?
Like his sultry tones in the town. Like I don't miss him that much. Like, you know, as a neighbour he was quite disruptive. I think I probably do miss the I think it's like kind of like his pale blue eyes, maybe. You know, his auburn hair as well.
I think about Jonas what I most would miss. He always used to wear this silly little pair of glasses on his head, way too small for his head. I always wanted those glasses. I think those are what I'm going to miss most about Jonas.
Like your ones?
Yeah, these are my glasses.
Oh, so they're different ones.
Yes.
He made a good beef Wellington.
Because in the end he was an interesting person. Interesting? Interesting. Interesting. Interestingly crooked man that is down in the dirt, dead as a ditch and done for dirt.
So what do you miss most about him?
I miss the song he would sing just before we went to bed. It went something like this. He'd sing it every night without fail, even in his darkest days, even in his most sick moments. He'd get up on the roof of the house and he'd open his mouth all the way around the chimney and he'd sing this song underneath the fireplace and we'd have the fire. He would stand on the roof of the house, right at the top, stark naked. He'd open his mouth all the way around the chimney. I mean, we had a little fire going in the fireplace, just embers. And then he'd sing, well, he'd sort of belt more than sing, I suppose, but he'd sing right down the chimney, right to the fireplace. And it was a song that he called it Hearts Aglow, as we would call it. And I'll try and remember that. It's been a while. Difficult to think about him, but I'll try and sing the song right now. It went something like this. This song goes a little bit like this.